BGMC. The biblical truth lives here.
Welcome to the City Gate Messianic Bible Study, being brought to you by Bethlehem Messianic Congregation. What is the importance of the biblical City Gate? It was a place contracts were made that are binding forever. The City Gate was also a place of redemption for the kinsman redeemer. The City Gate was a place where chastisement was administered. So come join us now as we enter into the City Gate Messianic Bible Study. Let's go get a blessing. Once again, this is Bethlehem Messianic Congregation. We're going to be studying the book of Akov, James, chapter 2. This is part number 12 of our study. If you've missed any part of our study, you can go to bgmctv.org. That's bgmctv.org. There's over 3,000 teachings on our website, and you can get this whole study by going to the index page there, or Discipleship Television, where you'll find the Shabbat teachings, and all three Shabbat teachings. You have myself, the main Shabbat teaching, Rav Will's teaching, which was really good this past Shabbat on Parashah number 101, and also on the calendar. Okay, what calendar should we use? And you also have Rav Yehoshua's teaching each week now on the prophet of the chapters of the prophet that are in the Chabad reading of the Parashah. There's many other different studies on, especially if you're new to following the real way, the truth, and the life. There's studies on the Shabbat. There's a 6-month study on the Shabbat alone. There's a 6-month study on all the holy days. Should you be worshiping on Saturday or Sunday? A whole bunch of different things there. Halloween, Christmas, all these wonderful things. Even tattoos. Somebody sent me a video with Joyce Meyer talking about women and people getting tattoos. Should you get tattoos? Is that biblical? Well, there's that and much, much more on our website. So go to bethlehem.org or bgmctv.org. Now we're going to be studying chapter 2, sections 4 and 5. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since we last met, so let's refresh our minds with first rereading chapter 2. Okay, let's reread chapter 2 of the book of Akov, James 2. We're going to read the entire chapter, then get to sections 4 and 5 of the chapter. My brothers, practice the faith of our Lord Yeshua, the glorious Messiah, without showing favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your synagogue wearing gold rings and fancy clothes, and also a poor man comes in dressed in rags. If you show more respect to the man wearing the fancy clothes and say to him, "Have this good seat here," while to the poor man you say, "You stand over there," or "Sit down on the floor by my feet," then aren't you creating distinctions among yourselves, and haven't you made yourselves into judges with evil motives? Listen, my dear brothers, hasn't God chosen the poor of the world to be rich in faith and to receive the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? But you despise the poor. Aren't the rich the ones who are oppressing you and dragging you into court? Aren't they the ones who insult the good name of him to whom you belong? If you truly attain the goal of kingdom Torah, in the conformity with the passage that says, "Love your neighbor as yourself," you are doing well. But if you show favoritism, your actions constitute sin, since you are convicted under the Torah as transgressors. For the person who keeps the whole Torah yet stumbles at one point has become guilty of breaking them all. For the one who said, "Don't commit adultery," also said, "Don't murder." Now if you don't commit adultery, but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the Torah. Keep speaking and acting like people who will be judged by the Torah, which gives freedom. For judgment will be without mercy towards one who doesn't show mercy, but mercy wins out over judgment. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and someone says to him, Shalom, keep warm and eat hearty, without giving him what he needs. What good does it do? Thus faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. You believe that God is one, good for you. The demons believe it too. And though the thought makes them shudder with fear. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? Wasn't Abraham Avinu declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? You see that this faith worked with his actions. By the actions the faith was made complete. And the passage of the Tanakh which says, Abraham had faith in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness. He was even called God's friend. You see that a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Likewise, wasn't Rachav the prostitute also declared righteous because of actions when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out by another route? Indeed, just as a body without a spirit is dead, so too faith without actions is dead. Amen? All right, so now what we're going to do is, as we do with the other studies and what we've been doing here, is breaking down the sections, okay? That the chapter 2 had 5 sections, okay? You break it down into sections so when you're learning, you can learn by section, and like a ladder going up to heaven, you build part by part and you step by step. So section 1 was verse 1 through 4. We talked about without showing favoritism. Section 2 is to be rich in faith, verse 5 through 7. Section 3 was Torah, which gives freedom, verses 8 through 13. And then tonight what we're going to be studying is section 4 and 5. Section 4, faith without works is dead. This is probably, besides the Gospels, these 4 verses are probably the most important part of the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, to understand, because faith without works is dead. We're going to be talking about this at great depth, okay? Really going into what was said there, and do you have to do the works of the law? You got all these Christians saying that you don't. But what does the Bible say? What does the Brit Hadashah, what does the New Testament say? And this section 4 is really, after you get saved, it's really one of the most important 4 verses that you should really look at, because without it, you can get really lost. And then section 5 is verse 19 through 26. 19 through 26. It is a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Okay, so we're going to look at those 2 sections and to finish up chapter 2 this week. Once again, this is a line-by-line study, a very detailed study, because so many people are lost out there. And with what's going on in the world, with World War III looming, nuclear strikes being talked about, food is going to become very scarce very soon. You have the elections in Israel this day that we're recording this on November 1st on the secular calendar. And as a Bible study night, I read that Benjamin Netanyahu and Likud got enough seats with their partners to have a ruling party of 61 seats or more in the government. You have Bolsonaro in Brazil saying he's not conceding in the election down there. We have a lot of real crazy things going on, and the world is constantly changing. But one thing that we can always count on is Elohim. That's the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. They don't change, and the Bible does not change. So let's go on to section 4, and let's read what it says there. Okay, because this is verse 14 through 18. As I said a moment ago, I think it's really one of the, after the Gospels, after the words of Messiah himself, I think these 4 verses are really vitally important for anybody who's coming into the faith. Anybody who's coming into the faith and what they really need to do. So let's read it. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and someone says to him, Shalom, keep warm and eat healthy, without giving him what he needs. What good does it do? Thus faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. That's really something extraordinarily important, and the key is being the true is to be a true follower of the Messiah. What does it mean to be a true follower? Well, what we're going to really look at here in our study tonight is what is being said here. Now, we're reading section number 4 of chapter 2. In section 5, it really goes in to give examples of everything that you should be doing. So you should be keeping the law. Okay? Somebody who believes in Messiah, what I always say at the congregation on every Shabbat when we're doing the announcements is Satan believes in Messiah. He actually believes in Yeshua, but he doesn't follow him. And that's really the biggest error of most of people that call themselves Christians or followers of the way or believers, is their actions don't speak or show that they follow Messiah. Okay? Because Messiah, we all agree, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Okay? He was born a Hebrew, had his ministry as a Hebrew, he died as a Hebrew, and he rose from the grave still being a Hebrew. Or, some people call it Jews, but the real term is to be Hebrew, because Jew is only one from Judah, okay, or Yehuda. So let's take a look at this. Let's break down what we're seeing in this section number 4 of chapter 2. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Let's read verse 14 now. We're going to focus on that for a moment. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Okay, so faith and actions. Okay, look down at verse 21. Okay, actions speak louder than words. Look at verse 21. Wasn't Abraham Avinu, our father, declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? So what Akov James is talking about is what we find happening in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 22. We'll go there in a second. I'll bring it up on the screen in a moment. Okay, so we get what if you have faith, from the time Jehovah called Abraham, when he called him to leave his house, right? He called him to leave his house and to be separated. Abraham believed in him. Did he follow him well at the beginning? No, he made a lot of mistakes. He leaves his family, and we see in I think it's chapter 13 of Bereshit, Genesis 13, he doesn't trust in Jehovah. He tells Sarai that to say that she's his sister, and the Egyptians take her because Avram goes to Egypt because there was a famine, and he doesn't trust Jehovah. So he had faith, but he didn't have actions. Okay, and he messes up quite a few times. So let's turn over to Genesis 22. There's going to be something that is said that's very important. Turn over to Genesis 22. Genesis Bereshit 22. We're going to read verse 7 through 12. Bereshit, Genesis 22, verse 7 through 22. Let's see what it says here. Yitzhak spoke to Abraham his father. My father, he answered. Here I am, my son. He said, I see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham replied, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. And they both went on together. They came to the place that God had told him about, and Abraham built an altar there, set the wood in order, bound Yitzhak his son, and laid him on the altar on the wood. Then Abraham put out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of Jehovah called to him out of heaven. Abraham, Abraham, he answered. Here I am. He said, don't lay your hand on the boy. Don't do anything to him. For now I know that you are a man who fears God, or fears Elohim, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. The key is in this verse number 12. He said, don't lay your hand on the boy. Don't do anything to him. For now I know you are a man who fears God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Okay, so that's a real big key to understanding what we were reading in James. So go back to James, Akov chapter 2, verse 14. Where I told you to hold your place. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? And then verse 21, wasn't Avraham Avinu declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? Okay, so we see that heaven speaks of Avraham when the actions spoke louder than the words. When he was willing to sacrifice his son Yitzhak, that we see in Bereshit Genesis 22:12, he was willing to do that. This has been over 25 years. It's over 25 years, because Jehovah called Avram from his parents and where his family was when he was 75, and he's over 100 at this point. Okay, so his actions spoke of the true belief. Okay, because it took this action that we saw in Bereshit 22:12 to be declared righteous, because his actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak. That's what James is talking about in verse 14. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? It's sort of like the Sunday people. They say they believe in Messiah, but their actions don't line up with their faith, because Yeshua didn't have any Sunday worships, services. He was always in temple or a synagogue or a congregation on the Shabbat. Okay? He wasn't doing services on Sunday. So we're supposed to follow Messiah Yeshua. So your actions, so Yaakov, James is talking to the new congregation, the new Messianic congregation. It's not a church. Okay, these are Messianic believers. They're leaving paganism, and they weren't leaving, Baptists or Protestant or Lutherans or any of the other 1,500 denominations. They were leaving paganism, or they weren't leaving Judaism because Messiah is a Jew. They were leaving rabbinic Judaism to follow in the truth. So look at verse 14. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? No. Okay. You have to have faith unless you happen to be on a cross and Messiah is next to you, and he tells you, you're going to be this day in paradise. Okay, but the actions, and we talked about this, if you put the two Gospels together, Matthew and I believe it's in Luke, they both curse Yeshua in the end. So their actions, did not follow their faith. They had to make 6 hours on the cross because Messiah was put up on the cross on 9, and he gave up his life at 3. So 6 hours, 6 being the number of man, 9 being the number of strength, and then we go into 10 plus 3. Okay, you can do all the gematria of that. So, but we're going to stick with Yaakov tonight. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and see what else this powerful testimony, this letter that is being given to us. Okay, now hold your place once again in James. Well, let's read James 2:14 again. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Okay, hold your place there and turn to Matthew 12, verse 48 through 50. Matthew, chapter 12, verse 48 through 50. Matthew 12, verse 48 through 50. Alrighty. Give you a second to find that there. And let me get this set over here. Alright, verse 48 through 50. But to the one who had informed him, he replied, Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Pointing to his talmudim, he said, Look, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does what my Father in heaven wants, that person is my brother and sister. Okay, so that's vitally important. Yeshua said, whoever does what my Father in heaven wants. Okay, so you can have faith, but Yeshua is saying you have to have actions. Whoever does what my Father in heaven wants. Well, what does the Father in heaven want? Well, he wrote it down for us. He gives us really good, great laws to live our lives by. Okay, he gives you the Father gives us what he considers holy, so that you can be drawn to him. So if you're not doing what the Father wants, then you're following yourself or you're following Satan. Or really, if you're not following the Father, and Yeshua followed the Father, Yeshua and the Father are one. They agree on everything. Okay. So if you claim to have faith, but you're not doing what the Father in heaven wants, then you are not really a believer. So let's say you're a man, and the The prime minister, again, I think has been Benjamin Netanyahu. He doesn't have a beard. Is he in disobedience? Absolutely. Because Vayikra, Leviticus 19, verse 27 says, don't cut your beard. Okay? So if you're cutting your beard, and especially those who believe in Messiah, you have faith in Messiah, but you have no actions to prove it. So you're cutting your beard off. Are you really doing what the Father in heaven wants? Yeshua says in verse 50, whoever does what my Father in heaven wants, that person is my brother and my sister. Okay? And let's also turn, I don't got this on the PowerPoint, but it's something that's coming to mind right now because you can have faith. Let's turn over to Matthew 7. Matthew 7, Matthew 7. This is also a perfect understanding. Matthew 7. Verse 21 through 23. We're tying this together with Akov 2 verse 14, when it says, someone claims to have faith, but his actions but it has no actions to prove it. So Matthew 7 verse 21 through 23 says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do what my Father in heaven wants. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we expel demons in your name? Didn't we perform many miracles in your name? Then I will tell you to their faces, I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. Okay? So they had faith. They preached in his name. They healed in his name. They cast out demons in Messiah's name. But they weren't doing what verse 21 says. Only those who do what my Father in heaven wants. Keeping the Shabbat, keeping the 7 biblical holy days, keeping kosher. There's many different things. Being separated from the world and not doing the things of the world. So it's very important here that we see what Akov, James, Yeshua's brother, is telling us in James 2:14. Okay? In James 2:14, go back there. Akov 2:14, what good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? So if you're not doing the actions, if you're not doing what the Father and the Son agree on in the mitzvot, the 613 mitzvot, the laws, okay, the ones that apply to you, okay, then we have laws for men, laws for women, laws for children, laws for boy children, girl children, married people, unmarried people, all different things like that, laws for the temple, laws for the holy days, laws for eating, all these things that Jehovah, the great planner, the creator, gave to us. So Messiah said in Matthew 7, you workers of lawlessness, okay? So they had faith because they healed in Messiah's name, they preached in Messiah's name. These are Messianic believers. They cast out demons in Messiah's name, but they were workers of lawlessness, so they weren't following what Messiah and the Father said to do. Okay? So like I said, this section 4 of Akov, James chapter 2 is really quite powerful. I forgot I put this slide in there. Okay? So once again, let me just read it. But anyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them. No, actually, this is a different part. Turn back to Matthew 7. There's so many things that I could put in this presentation, in this study. Is really amazing. That's why we have them all on our website. So turn back to Matthew 7, verse 26 and 27. Okay? And once again, if you miss any part of this study, you can always go to our website, bethgoyim.org. That's BETHGOYIM.org. Or simply BGMCtv.org. And you can watch all these studies. You can watch studies on makeup, earrings, war, healthcare. We have a whole healthcare section now, biblical healthcare. So go to bgmctv.org, click on the education, and then discipleship television. You go to the whole healthcare section, biblical healthcare. Okay. Matthew 7, verse 26 and 27. But anyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a stupid man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the rivers flooded, the wind blew and beat against that house, and it collapsed, and its collapse was horrendous. Okay, in verse 26, Yeshua says, if you don't act on his words, and Yeshua said he and the Father are one, they're separate entities, they're not one person, because how can you sit at the right hand of the Father if you're the same person? Okay, so they're not the same person, but they agree on everything 100%. Okay, so Yaakov is, in James 2:14 was saying, you have faith but no actions, and Yeshua is saying in Matthew 7:26, if you don't act on Messiah's words, then you're a stupid person or a moron, okay, and your house will collapse. So that's really important, that you have to act on. You have to act on the Word of God, okay? So Yeshua said, if you're a worker of lawlessness, but they preached in his name, healed in his name, cast demons out in his name, that meant they were believers. They had faith. But he said they were workers of lawlessness, so their actions didn't stay with their words. Okay, so this is what James is pointing out in his letter, his really powerful letter. So let's go back to James. Nope, we're going to go to another one. I chose a bunch because this was really powerful. So go to Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. Give you a second to find that. Sometimes Hebrews is a little hard to find. But Hebrews 11, verse 7. By trusting Noach, after receiving divine warning about things as yet unseen, was filled with holy fear and built an ark to save his household. Through this trusting, he put the world under condemnation and received the righteousness that comes from trusting. Okay, he trusted, he had faith, and in his actions, he built the ark. He built the ark that Jehovah told him to build. Okay, so if he only had faith and didn't build the ark, he'd be swimming with the fishes, and none of us would be here to be talking about all this. Okay, so Noach built the ark. He had faith in God. He built the ark. Abraham had faith in God. He left his family, but it wasn't until he had his actions by giving up his son Yitzhak in Bereshit, Genesis 22, verse 12. Because Jehovah Elohim said, now I know, because your actions followed your faith. So we have Hebrews 11. Okay, so any of you who love your family, but they're stuck in Christendom or stuck in even Messianic Judaism that doesn't keep the law, they go Talmudic and they don't do the things that they're supposed to do. You need to talk to them about what we're talking about in this study. It's very powerful, because you can have faith, but if you don't have actions to prove it, then you're not going to get into heaven, because Yeshua says you're stupid if you don't act on his words. Okay, he said in Matthew 7, okay, about those that preached and healed and cast out demons in his name. And they were going to hell because they are workers of lawlessness. Okay, and Matthew 7, building your house on the rock, building actions. Okay, put on the whole armor of God. It's actions. Okay, you have faith, but your actions by putting on the full armor of God. Okay, so there's so many things we can look at. Okay, let's stay in Hebrews and go to verse 28 and 29. Hebrews chapter 11. We're still in Hebrews here. Let's look at verse 28 and 29. By trusting, he obeyed the requirements for the Pesach, including the smearing of the blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By trusting, they walked through the Red Sea as through dry land. When the Egyptians tried to do it, the sea swallowed them up. Okay, so the people of Israel in verse 29 had left Egypt by the hand of Jehovah, and they walked through the Red Sea. They walked through the Red Sea. Actions. They had to have faith, because there was a lot of water on either side of them, and they had to have faith. But if they didn't walk through the Red Sea, they would have been killed by the Egyptians. So their faith had to have action. Okay, so anybody who says we're not under the law anymore, well, you might just want to just study this verse in James Akov 2:14, and really just know that you need to do all these things. Say, as I said, Satan believes in Messiah. He doesn't follow. His actions don't follow Messiah. Messiah said, who are his brothers and sisters? Those who do what the Father in heaven wants. Actions. Okay? Building your house on the sand. Actions. Noah, building the ark. Actions. Abraham, giving up his son Yitzhak. Actions. Okay? So, walking through the Red Sea. Actions. Okay? But they had faith first, because they had to believe what Jehovah said. But if they didn't follow with the actions, then Noah would have been drowned. Abraham would not have got his blessing. You didn't build your house on the rock. You didn't put on the full armor of God. You preached and healed and cast out demons in his name, but you're a worker of lawlessness. You become a son or daughter of the Father by doing what he says. Actions. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Whew! All right, now let's go back to James chapter 2, verse 14 through 17. Okay? And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Okay? Remember to check out our website, Bgmctv.org. We stream on YouTube on Tuesdays and Shabbat. But we always stream everything also from our page, YeshuaTube.org, where we also stream the Sledgehammer Show, which is on Wednesday nights, 7:15, 8:15. You can always go to thesledgehammershow.com to watch that. And also, if you missed it, the live presentation, you can always watch the recorded show, and it's quite powerful. Okay, so back to Yaakov chapter 2, verse 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and someone says to him, Shalom, keep warm and eat hearty, without giving him what he needs. What good does it do? Thus faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. Okay, that's very important, because a lot of the church people, are very into, they have this faith, but they don't have any actions. So we're being very, very clearly told in verse 17, faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. Okay, Noah, we looked at Noah. Okay, God told him to build the ark. He had faith that was correct. And if he didn't build the ark, then he would be dead, and so would his family, because they would have drowned in the flood. Abraham was found righteous when he actually offered up Yitzhak and brought him to the mountain, tied him up, and was about to take his life. Okay, so let's see what the word actions means. Let's go to the definition. Actions, we're looking at verse 17. Thus, faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. So actions, and in some translations, is the word work. It is G2041. Definition number 1. Business, employment, that which anyone is occupying. Number 2, an act, deed, things done. Okay? Act, deed, things done. Okay, the key to this is the keys to being a true follower of Messiah. What are your acts? What are your deeds? What are the things that you're doing? Would Messiah Yeshua be doing that thing? Would he have celebrated the pagan Halloween, pagan Easter, pagan Christmas? Would he be celebrating, man-made holidays of New Year's on the 1st of December 31st? What are your actions speaking of? Would Yeshua have gone to, would he kept his Sabbath, his Shabbat on Sunday? What are your actions talking about? Okay. So, James 2:17, thus faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. Okay. Your actions, what are your acts doing? What are your deeds? Well, it doesn't matter what day I worship, says Paul. Well, to God, the Father, Jehovah, the fourth commandment, it does matter to him, because he says, keep the Shabbat holy. And the first time he calls the Shabbat holy, is Bereshit, Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. Genesis 2, verse 3. Okay? How many Jews were on the planet when Jehovah called the Shabbat holy? None, because Avraham was not born yet. So he gave the Shabbat to the world, the nations. Okay? He called it holy when there was only, Adam and Chava on the planet. And they would be considered Gentiles, because the covenant doesn't happen until Bereshit, Genesis 12, verse 3, with Avraham. So, faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. Okay? It's very important to see that and to understand that. That you can have faith, faith in many things. And you can have faith in Messiah, you can believe in him. But if you're not doing actions, if your actions don't follow your faith, then you're dead. You're dead to God, because when you don't follow the commandments, did Adam die when he broke the commandment? Well, he died spiritually, and death is separation from the Father. So faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, you're dead. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then your faith is dead. Okay, now let's, we're still in section number 4. We're now going to look now to the last verse in that section. So let's read verse 14 through 18. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and someone says to him, Shalom, keep warm and eat hearty, without giving him what he needs. What good does it do? Thus faith by itself, unaccompanied by actions, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith, and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. Key, let's read verse 18 again. But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. That's a like I said, this section 4, these 4 verses, 14 through 18, are extraordinarily powerful. Okay? You're going to show your faith by your actions. How do you know somebody's a real follower of Messiah? Well, their life resembles Messiah. They don't eat bread during the feasts of Hag Matzah. They only eat matzah. They were commanded to eat matzah every day of the feast for those 7 days. Okay? Sukkot, you're supposed to celebrate Sukkot. You're supposed to be there the 1st and 8th day. Okay? These are all things, these actions. Okay, like I'm just pointing out simple things that if you don't do even these simple things, how can you do the much more difficult things? And is God going to be with you when all hell breaks loose on the earth very shortly, when there's no food, and all the things that the cabal, the governments of the world are looking to start doing again? They're starting lockdowns already in China again. They're starting lockdowns in the world again, and this time period is very difficult. You want God on your side, and Akov, James, Yeshua's brother, is telling us your faith must accompany your actions. Okay, so if you have faith without actions, then you're dead. Okay, it's very clear that you will not be getting into heaven. Okay, because God is not with you. Okay, so it's very important for us to do what it says here. Look at verse 18 again. But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. Okay, you can always really tell a true follower, does their life, do they keep Yeshua as an example? Is he their example, and do they follow that example? Okay. Do they wear the tzitzit? Are the men wearing the tzitzit? Okay, on a four-corner garment, not on the loops of your belt pant on your pants. It's supposed to be on a four-corner garment, a special different garment. Okay. Does a married woman have her head covered according to Bamidbar Numbers 5:18? Do you keep the holy days that I've talked about? Okay. You show Abraham showed the Lord. He showed the Father by his faith, had his actions when he was willing to give up Yitzhak in Genesis Bereshit 22:12. They said, "Now I know that you really love God and follow him by the actions." Why did it take that? Well, there's many studies on our website that we go into talking about that. But the actions spoke the truth. Abraham was willing to do the actions. Okay, so that's what we need to do if you want to be a follower of Messiah. Okay, so now let's look at it, verse 18 again. But now we're going to look at the definition of the word actions. But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. Okay, actions. In some translations is the word work, is G2041, it's that same word again. So definition number 2, an act, deed, things done. Okay, show that you're a follower by the way you represent the kingdom in your actions. Show that you are a follower by the way you represent the kingdom in your actions. Okay, show that you're really a follower of Messiah by your actions. Okay, you're a follower of the kingdom by your actions, by what acts you do, what things you do, what deeds you do. Okay, what are you occupied with? Okay, as I talked about in this past Shabbat lesson, the plan, everything should be leading up to Shabbat every Friday evening. Everything should center around Friday evening to Saturday evening. Okay, everything else doesn't matter. You need to be doing Shabbat. If you're not doing Shabbat, well, then you really don't have faith, because Your actions don't speak the truth. Your actions don't speak the truth. Okay, now we're going to move on to section number 5. Okay, and in section 5 in verses 19 through 26, Akov is going to give examples of this faith and this action in action. Faith in action. Okay? So really, from verse 14 through 26 is, besides the Gospels, in the Brit Hadashah is really one of the most important parts to who and what you're supposed to be. People love the prophecy of Revelation. They like talking about that, and that's all well and good. But everybody's going to die at some point, and everybody's going to stand before Yeshua's court. Okay, in Revelation 20. Okay, people love prophecy. They love to talk about other stuff. But what Beth Goyim is all about is getting you ready for your trial. Okay, because you're going to be judged by the actions you did while you were in the body. Paul talks about that. Rav Shaul talks about that. The actions you did while you were in the body, in this body, in the body of Messiah. Okay, so you had faith, but did your actions accompany your faith? Did your faith without works is dead. You really need to follow Messiah's. What if Yeshua didn't come and go to the cross? What if he just said, "Yeah, I thought about going to the cross. In my mind, I went there." No, that wouldn't have, and his actions would not have completed what he needed to do. So we're going to go to section number 5. That's the last section of chapter 2. A person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. We're going to be looking at verses 19 through 26. 19 through 26. This is Akov, James chapter 2. We're going to go through verse 19 through 26. So it's going to be on 2 slides here for us to see. I'm going to get myself off the screen. You believe that God is one, good for you. The demons believe it too. The thought makes them shudder with fear. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? Wasn't Abraham Avinu declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? You see that faith worked with his actions. By the actions, the faith was made complete. And the passage of the Tanakh was fulfilled, which says, Abraham had faith in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness. He was even called God's friend. You see that a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Likewise wasn't Rachav, the prostitute, also declared righteous because of actions when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out by another route. Indeed, just as the body without a spirit is dead, so too faith without actions is dead. Okay? So, can you just have faith alone? Faith without actions is dead. Okay? So let's break down what he wrote there so we can complete chapter 2 tonight. All right, so let's go back to verse number 19. It's an important verse to look at because he's quoting, Akov is being very Jewish, and he's quoting the Shema. So let's look at James chapter 2, verse 19. You believe that God is one. Good for you. The demons believe it too. The thought makes them shudder with fear. Okay, so hold your place there in James, and let's go back to the Shema in Devarim 6, verse 4 and 5. Let's do the Shema and the Ve'ahavta, because that's what he's quoting. The demons know that God is one. Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. And you are to love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, all your being, and all your resources. Amen? So God is one. God is one with us. He made us in His image. They made us in their image. So that's the Father and Son. Okay? So when we are following these actions, listening every morning and every evening to the Shema and following the laws of God, then it is good for you. The demons believe that God is one, and the thought makes them shudder. Because if we are one with God by faith and our actions, in those two things, faith and actions, because faith alone, okay, did Cain have faith in God? Yes. But his actions spoke that he didn't follow God. He killed his brother. Cain killed Abel, right? Cain killed Havel. And then when Jehovah said before he killed him that sin is crouching at your door, he didn't believe God. So his actions were believing in the devil, and he followed the devil. So when we follow God, the demons shudder because we are echad with God. How can you be echad with God? Well, you have to keep the laws that He told you to keep. All right, so that one was pretty simple. Now let's go back to chapter 2, James chapter 2, verse 19 and 20. Okay, let's look at these two verses, because there's something that James is he seems to be a bit aggravated with this question, and he calls somebody, calls him a Satan worshiper. You believe that God is one, good for you. The demons believe it too. The thought makes them shudder with fear. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? Okay, in verse 20, it seems that as if Yaakov is a bit aggravated with who's ever asking, or is it one person? He says fellow. It could be one person, or maybe it's more than one person. But he says, the word foolish is G2756 in the Greek, and it means empty, vain, devoid of truth. So if you're devoid of truth, that means you're following Satan. You're following Satan. So who's ever asking this question, Yaakov is angry with whoever asks the question. He calls that person a Satan worshiper by saying you're devoid of truth. Okay? So Yaakov is showing that he's a bit aggravated with this person, and and these people. And imagine if he was living today. Imagine if he was trying to deal with the church people, or sadly, even most of the Messianic body. You go to some of the leading organizations that the Messianics go to. Their leadership, many of them don't have beards, and if they do have beards, they have short beards. And did I have a short beard for some time? Yeah, I fought it. Okay, but finally, I yielded to God. And do I have a question about the beard? Yeah, when I got up to heaven, I was like, what? It gets in the whatever. Okay, but the Lord said, don't cut it, don't mar it. Okay, so James in 2:20, chapter 2, verse 20 says, but foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? And he's going to go and he's going to quote the Tanakh, and he's going to show examples of people that have faith with their actions. And we can spend a number of weeks just studying people with their faith and actions. But Yaakov is going to actually give us examples so we don't even have to go look. Okay? But we're going to look at first this part about being foolish. Hold your place there in James and turn to Jeremiah chapter 2, Yirmiyahu chapter 2. We're going to look at verse 4 and 5. James, hold your place in James and turn to Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 4 and 5. Hear the word of Yehovah, house of Yaakov, and all the families in the house of Israel. Here's what Yehovah says. What did your ancestors find wrong with me to make them go so far away from me? to make them go after nothings and become themselves nothings. That's very powerful. So when you're not following the law of God, you're finding something wrong with Jehovah, because Jehovah said, do this and this will make you holy. These things will draw you closer to him. So when the people have faith in Yeshua or in Jesus, and they're not doing what they've been told to do by the Father, and Yeshua keeping the commands, they're being like what it says there in Jeremiah 2:5. Here's what Jehovah says: what did your ancestors find wrong with me to make them go so far away from me, to make them go after nothings and become themselves nothings? So when you're not keeping the laws of God, then you are yourselves becoming nothing. Okay? So you don't want to become nothing. You want to be something. You want to be what God wants you to be. Okay? You want to be what you're supposed to be. And what we're supposed to be is keepers of the commandments. That's what God wants us to do, the sons of God and the daughters of God. Okay? Let's now go back to James 2. Okay? Because we're focusing on verse 20, but we're going to read verse 20 through 23. James chapter 2, verse 20 through 23. Let's read it. But foolish fellow, don't you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? Wasn't Avraham Avinu declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? You see that his faith worked with his actions. By the actions, the faith was made complete. And the passage of the Tanakh which was fulfilled, which says Abraham had faith in God and was credited to his account as righteousness, he was called God's friend. So don't we all want to be called God's friend? Okay, so he calls the person who's asking this or teaching others to do this, not following the commandments, he calls him a foolish person, which means you're devoid of truth. And then he says, such faith apart from actions is barren. In some translations, it uses the word useless. It's G692. Lazy, shunning the labor which one ought to perform. And it comes from G1 and G2041. Inactive, that is unemployed, by implication lazy, useless, barren, idle, slow. So James is actually getting pretty aggravated with whoever said this. So in verse 20, it's, he's not cursing him out, but he's using some very strong terms to show what is truth. So anybody nowadays, the same thing goes for them. If you don't want to follow what is true, okay, if you don't want to follow what is true, you don't want to keep the laws, well, then you're a foolish fellow or female or foolish female, either or, and your actions are barren. That means they're they're useless, they're barren, they're idle. Okay, so let's look at those couple of verses again, because he gives great examples. So should you have this work in action? Can you just have faith without actions? No. Let's look at verse 20 through 23 again. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? So he gives examples. Wasn't it of Avraham Avinu declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son Yitzhak on the altar? You see that his faith worked with his actions. And by the actions, the faith was made complete. And the passage of the Tanakh which fulfilled, which says Abraham had faith in God and was credited to him his account as righteousness, he was even called God's friend. Okay, so verse 22 is really important. You see that his faith worked with his actions. And by the actions, his faith was made complete. And then he was called God's friend. So he wasn't made complete. Now this is at least 25 years later. It took him 25 years. That's why the Bible is so real. Avram, his name was Avram when he was called, was 75 when he left his mother and father's and all his family's compound. So here it is, he's over 100 when he's given up Yitzhak on the altar. And then, we read in Genesis, Bereshit 22:12, that the Lord said, "Now I know that you truly love me." Okay? So it took his actions to, do I believe that Abraham really loved God? Well, it doesn't matter what I believe, it's what I can prove from the scriptures. Okay, now let's go to verse 24 to 26. This is our last slide for this presentation of Akov chapter 2. This is part number 12. Verse 24 to 26. You see that a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Likewise, wasn't Rachav, the prostitute, declared righteous because of actions when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out by another route? Indeed, just as a body without a spirit is dead, so too faith without actions is dead. So this is checkmate. This also proves that what they were reading, okay? What were they reading? What was James quoting from? The Tanakh, the Old Testament, okay? From Genesis through Malachi. They weren't reading the New Testament because it wasn't written. Okay, so he's talking to them about what the testimony of the Tanakh is. So faith without actions is dead. You're dead because if your actions don't change from being a pagan to being a follower of Messiah. Let's go back to one slide for another minute or two. If you're a follower of Messiah and your actions don't declare who you're following, you can wear the nice big cross, you can, get tattoos and say, I'm engraved on Messiah's hands. You're not, because your actions are not following your faith. You have to have both. Look at verse 24 to 26 one last time. You see that a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Likewise, wasn't Rachav, the prostitute, also declared righteous because of actions when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out by another route? Indeed, just as a body without a spirit is dead, so too faith without actions is dead. Okay? Your faith must be accompanied by actions. Okay? Your faith must become accompanied by actions. If you don't have both, then you are truly dead to God. Okay? It's very important to have both. And it's very clear what Yaakov is writing here to us. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can send an email to info@bethgoyim.org or rabbiandrew@bethgoyim.org. If you'd like to get in touch with the ministry, you dial 973-338-7800. That's 973-338-7800. Our website's bgmctv.org. bgmctv.org. We stream our services starting at 11. If you're in North or South Carolina, come and visit us. Okay, you don't have to be Jewish to be with us. You just have to have a heart that wants to follow the Messiah. Okay, let's pray to close our class. And this should be up on our website sometime tomorrow. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. To you, Yeshua, Messiah, our example. Your faith and your actions went together. You're supposed to be our example, so we follow you in spirit and in truth. Let this teaching get out to millions and millions of people that say they follow you, but they're really not following you in spirit and in truth. Because if they were following in spirit and in truth, their actions would follow their faith. Because without actions, their faith is dead. In your name, Yeshua, and everybody said, Amen.
Shalom. This is Messianic Rabbi Andrew Dinnerman. I would personally like to thank you for tuning in to the Remnant's Call each and every week. You can listen to the full message on our website, Bgmctv.org. If you have drawn closer to the King of Kings, learned more about Him today, we are blessed. If you are blessed by these messages, please consider a donation to our ministry. You can go to our website, Bgmctv.org. That's BETHGOYIM.org, and click on the donate button. You do not have to have a PayPal account to donate. All you need is a debit card. Once again, thank you very much for listening to The Remnant's Call.
If you have not taken your first steps to be born again, just ask God's help. Remember, it's His loving grace that has come to find you. No one is worthy or able to reach God, but God can reach us, and He's reaching out to you now. Just open your heart and let Him in. His arms are open, and the blessing of salvation and eternal life are waiting for you. Don't let it wait any longer.
Ya Adonai, panavoleka, vikuneka, Yisa Adonai, panavoleka, vayasem laka, shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord lift His face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious unto you and give you His shalom.
Shalom. My name is Messianic Rabbi Andrew Dinnerman, and I invite you to come to visit our congregation. If you are in the tri-state area, come out and visit with us on Shabbat. We are a congregation of Jews and Gentiles, living as one in the Messiah Yeshua. BGMC is a place of true worship. The focus never wanders from the Hebraic roots of our faith. Beth Goyim is rooted in the Word of God from Bereshit through to the book of Revelation. Messiah's strong words against man-made tradition are carefully recorded in Matthew 7. That is the reason we only follow the straight-up instructions found in Scripture. Truly, the way, the truth, and the life. If you're looking for a deeper walk with Adonai, come out for our Tuesday evening Bible study called Messianic Torah Time. Come, spend the day with us on any Shabbat. We start at 11 a.m. with the sound of the ancient Hebrew shofar. Next, we offer our King praise and worship in English, Hebrew, and Spanish. After worship, we review the headlines in the previous week's news from around the globe, especially news from the Holy Land, Israel. We don't just list the news headlines as current events, but we comb through the scriptures, searching for clues to understand what they mean and then to help pinpoint prophetically our current position on Adonai's clock. After digesting all that modern information, we leave the world behind as we journey with our Adonai deep into His eternal Word, not with just one or two scriptures, but usually 7 or more scriptures. The spiritual nourishment and the richness of His kingdom become accessible to the ones who share this special time and seek them out. The day does not end there. Because Shabbat is so special to Him, there is always so much more that our King desires to share. So instead of separating and leaving, we stay together as a family for potluck lunch and an afternoon study of our King's Word. We close the Shabbat together with a reading of the new week's parashah. That's the Torah portion. Even after those blessings, many of us just can't get enough. So the members bring prepared homemade foods to share while we all enjoy an uplifting movie together. If all that information is not quite enough, you can check out our website where you will find over 200 video teachings and biblical holy day studies. Under Messianic Torah Time, the Hebrew Roots button, you'll discover free studies on many different topics. including PowerPoint slide presentations. If Beth Goyim sounds like a place you'd love to visit, but you live outside the tri-state area, there is still a way to connect with us. We stream live on the internet on Tuesday, Thursday, and Shabbat. The website is www.bethgoyim.org. That's BETHGOYIM.org. Our phone number is 973-338-7800 or 978-2-YESHUA. That's 978, the number 2, Yeshua. Shalom.